for whom and through whom all things exist, in bringing many children to glory, should make the pioneer of their salvation perfect through sufferings. For the one who sanctifies and those who are sanctified all have one Father. For this reason, Jesus is not ashamed to call them brothers and sisters, saying, I will proclaim your name to my brothers and sisters. In the midst of the congregation, I will praise you. And again, I will put my trust in him. And again, here I am, and the children whom God has given me. Since, therefore, the children share flesh and blood, he himself likewise shared the same thing, so that through death he might destroy the one who has the power of death, that is the devil, and free those who all their lives were held in slavery by the fear of death. For it is clear that he did not come to help angels, but the descendants of Abraham. Therefore, he had to become like his brothers and sisters in every respect, so that he might be a merciful and faithful high priest in the service of God, to make a sacrifice of atonement for the sins of the people, because he himself was tested by what he suffered. He is able to help those who are being tested. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Will you pray with me? O Lord, may the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable in your sight. For you are our rock and our Redeemer. This morning, I am going to tell you a tall tale. It's called Strong But Quirky, The Birth of Davy Crockett. As retold by Erwin Shapiro, here is how it goes. Now, the morning Davy Crockett was born, Davy's pa came busting out of the cabin in Kentucky alongside the Nolichucky River. He fired 3 shots into the air, gave a whoop, and said, I've got me a son! His name is Davy Crockett, and he'll be the greatest hunter in all creation. When he said that, the sun rose up in the sky like a ball of fire. The wind howled rip-roariously, the thunder boomed, and all the critters and varmints of the forest let out a moan. Then, Davy's pa went back into the cabin. Little Davy was stretched out in a cradle made of a snapping turtle's shell. There was a pair of elk horns over the top, and over the elk horns was the skin of a wildcat. The cradle was run by water power, and it was rocking away, rockety, rockety. Now, all the Crockett's were big, but Davy was big, even for a Crockett. At his birth, he weighed 200 pounds, 14 ounces, and he was as frisky as a wildcat. His mom and his Aunt Katina stood over Davy, trying to get him to sleep. "Sing something to quiet the boy," said Aunt Katina to his Uncle Rorius, who was standing in a corner, combing his hair with a rake. Uncle Rorius opened his mouth to sing a bit of "Over the River to Charlie." That is, it was meant for singing. It sounded worse than a nor'easter howling around a country barn at midnight. Said Uncle Rorius. He reached for a jug and took him a sip of kerosene oil to loosen his pipes. Have you tried that, Judy? You know me. Davy was sitting up in his cradle. He kept his peepers on his uncle, watching him pull at that jug. "I'll have a sip of the same," said Davy, "as loud as you please." That kerosene jug slipped right out of Uncle Rorius' hand. Davy's mom, Aunt Katina, let out a shriek. "Why, the little shaver can talk," said Davy's pa. "Well," said Davy, talking slow and easy-like, "maybe I don't jabber good enough to make a speech in Congress, but I reckon I got the hang of her. It's nothing to Davy Crockett." "That's mighty big talk, son," said Davy's pa. "It ought to be," said Davy. "It's coming from a big man." And with that, he leapt out of his cradle, kicked his heels together, crowed like a rooster, and he flapped his arms and he bellowed, "I'm David Crockett, fresh from the backwoods. I'm half horse, half alligator, with a little touch of snapping turtle. I can wade the Mississippi, ride a streak of lightning, hug a bear too close for comfort, and whip my way in wildcats. I can out-eat, out-sleep, out-fight, out-shoot, out-run, out-jump, and out-squat any man in these here United States, and I will." Now, Aunt Katina eyed him as if he was a little bit of a mosquito making a buzz. "That'll be enough of your sass," she said, kind of sharp-like. "Now get back in your cradle and behave." "Yes, ma'am," said Davy. He was always polite to ladies. "No such thing," said Uncle Rorius. "Setting in the cradle won't grow him none. We've got to plant him in the earth and water him with wild buffalo's milk, with boiled corn cobs and tobacco leaves all mixed in." "Can't do any harm," said Davy's mom. "Might do good," said Davy's pa. "Suits me," said Davy. "Let's give her a try." So they took Davy out to Thunder Shower Hill, and they planted him in the earth. They watered him with wild buffalo's milk and boiled corn cobs and tobacco leaves mixed in. The sun shone on him by day, and the moon beamed down on him by night. The wind cooled him, and the rain freshened him. And Davy Crockett began to grow properly. One morning, Davy's pa got up as usual and looked out the window. Instead of the sun shining, it was like a cloudy night with fog and no moon. Davy's pa had never seen it so dark in all his born days. "Hurricane's coming up," he said to Uncle Rorius, who was standing in a corner, buttoning up his cast-iron shirt. "We'd better water Davy before he breaks," said Uncle Rorius. So Davy's pa and Uncle Rorius each picked up a barrel of wild buffalo's milk with boiled corn cobs and tobacco leaves mixed in. And Davy's ma and Aunt Katina followed along, carrying another barrel between them. But when they got outside, there wasn't a sign of a hurricane. There wasn't a hurricane coming up, going down, or standing still. There wasn't The sky was blue with little white clouds, and the sun shone just as pretty. Only reason it was so dark was that Davy's shadow was falling over the cabin. Davy must have grown some, said Davy's mom. And they all hurried over to Thunder Shower Hill. Davy was standing on tiptoe and his head poked through a cloud. He was taller than the tallest tree and a sight friskier. Uncle Rorius let out a yip, and Davy leaned down. He wiped a bit of cloud out of his eye and said, I've been looking over the country. She's right pretty, and I think I'm gonna like her. You'd better, said Aunt Katina, kind of snappy-like. She's the only one you got. Yes, ma'am, roared out Davy. His voice was so loud, it started an avalanche at Whangdoodle Knob 30 miles away. The trees all around flattened out, and Aunt Katina, Uncle Rorius, and Davy's mom and pa fell over from the force of it. Davy's pa picked himself up and shook his head. Oh, he's too big, he said. Oh, I don't know, said Uncle Rorius. He'll settle some. No, said Davy's pa. He's too big for a hunter. It wouldn't be fair and square. What are we going to do? Asked Uncle Rorius. Only one thing to do, said Davy's pa. We've got to uproot him and let him grow down to man size. So Davy's ma and pa, and his Aunt Katina and Uncle Rorius uprooted Davy. And soon as his feet were free, Davy leapt high into the air. He kicked his heels together, he flapped his arms, and he bellowed, Look out, all you critters and varmints of the forest, for here comes David Crockett, fresh from the backwoods. I'm half horse, half alligator, with a little touch of snapping turtle. I can run faster, jump higher, squat lower, dive deeper, stay underwater longer, and come up drier than any man in these here United States. Woo! Uncle Rorius listened to Davy, and he looked at Davy, and then he said, He's strong, but he's quirky. Davy followed Davy. He listened to Davy, and he said, He'll do. He'll do for a Crockett till a better one comes along. And when Davy's pa said that, lightning flashed and thunder boomed. The wind howled uproariously, and all the critters and varmints of the forest let out a moan. Now that is a great birth story of an American legend. And on Christmas Eve, we heard another kind of birth story, didn't we? Of the baby Jesus in a stable. There are some similarities, right? Humble beginnings, perhaps. Mary and Joseph might easily have been called Ma and Pa. With Davy's birth, the wind roared, the thunder boomed, and the critters let out a moan. With Jesus, angels appeared, and the star led people to the manger. But that might be where the similarities end. Jesus was not born over 200 pounds. Can you imagine? He did not speak as a newborn. He did not leap out of the manger and crow like a rooster. He did not promise to out-squat any man around. Davy Crockett did all of those things. And it appears he was nothing like us. In fact, he claims to have been half horse, half alligator with a touch of snapping turtle. Jesus, the baby laying in manger, was every bit like you and me. The letter to the Hebrews says he was like us in every respect. Why? To save us from ourselves. Davy Crockett was king of the wild frontier, and he might wrestle a bear to save your life. Jesus is Lord of all creation, and he has come to give you life. Abundant life. For any of us, given the right circumstances, the right tools, the right instruments, the right weapons, we can defeat wild animals. But who among us could fully turn our hearts from ourselves to God and to others? Who among us can turn on the light when the darkness is so consuming? Who among us, when tempted to make poor choices, can always and only choose good? John Chrysostom is considered perhaps one of, perhaps the greatest preacher in Christian history. In fact, they called him Golden Mouth. I'm just hoping for bronze. He preached the first ever known Christmas sermon in the year 386. This is what he said. For this, Jesus assumed my body, that I may become capable of his word. Taking my flesh, he gives me his spirit. And so he, bestowing, and I, receiving, he prepares me, for me, the treasure of life. He takes my flesh to sanctify me. He gives me his spirit, that he may save me. Friends, in this Christmas season, we are glad for legends like Davy Crockett. They're a lot of fun. But we are eternally grateful for the gift of Jesus, like us, in every way. The babe born in the manger. Amen. Brothers and sisters, believe the good news of God's abounding love in Jesus Christ. If you wish to join with us as a member of this congregation, or to transfer your membership, or if